Not sure which beginner fish to get? Here are my snap judgment quick reviews in only 4 words or less. Let's go. Hi, my name is Irene with Girl Talks Fish, and a while back I saw a random video on a guy reviewing every anime that was suggested by his audience in 4 words or less. As you may have realized, I've started making educational videos on the Aquarium Co-op channel as well. So to prevent myself from burning out, I've decided that every few well-researched, well-thought-out educational tutorial I make, I'm gonna do like one fun random video for me, and this is one of them. So don't take anything too seriously that I say today. I am off duty. Let's just have fun together. So when I came up with this idea, I basically made a really quick YouTube community post asking for suggestions on which fish you guys wanted me to review, and here is the list. So first person is Raven suggesting Betta fish. Oh, that makes sense. They're very hardy. It's only one fish. They can only be by itself anyways because it's pretty aggressive. I mean, we won't get into the whole like community tank situation and whatnot, but because it's one fish in one aquarium and it's usually a smaller aquarium, people tend to think, oh yeah, everything's gonna be cheaper. But then you have people like, Taylor of Simply Betta, who owns lots of betta fish and imports them from overseas and breeds them. So it's absolutely a fish for veterans as well. So let me think what I would call this. Aggressive addiction for all. That's what we're gonna put it as. Next one is Glofish. The people who make Glofish, they pick the hardiest, most beginner-friendly fish possible and then genetically modified them so they're very, very colorful, artificially so. Even though I personally have never kept them before, I've said in the past that my friend's Glofish tank interested my son, which got me interested in fish, and that's why I'm into fish keeping at all nowadays, because of Glofish. So let's call them rainbow-colored gateway for families. I think that's the type of beginner it tends to attract. Paul Gable suggested Cardinal tetras. Cardinals are like the more expensive, higher end version of the neon tetra. They both have the blue and red stripe, but Cardinals are a little bigger. They can handle hot water. Very pretty schooling fish. What to say about them? Best friend for discus. I feel like when people set up a discus tank, they often have Cardinal tetras as the midwater schooling fish and then stir-by cories as the bottom dwellers because they can all withstand higher than normal hot water temperatures. Ah, Drew, Goldfish, of course, the classic, another classic beginner fish. I gotta go with Cardinal prize gone wrong. I mean, I have to admit, goldfish are technically the first fish I ever kept as well. Although, to be fair, I was probably, 7 years old, so it was more like my parents taking care of them. I feel bad that a lot of goldfish are, just considered throwaway fish or feeder fish. It does serve a purpose, but in reality, you can get also very high-end specialty goldfish that cost, hundreds of dollars. So, yeah. That's what I think about goldfish for most people. That's what they think of. Aquarium Analytics suggests Silvertip tetras. So if you've seen any of the Aquarium Co-op videos, or even some of my videos where you put your hand on the glass and that swarm of tetras goes toward your hand, that's what I think of when I think of Silvertip tetras. Again, a more torpedo bullet shaped. They've got the little kind of white tips, dots on their fin tips and tail. So let's say, plays Follow the Leader. So if you're not from the United States, Follow the Leader is a game where you do exactly what the leader does, and that's what the fish do as well. You're the leader, and they are coming toward you. Matthew Clayton wants to know about Rummynose tetras. What to say? South American tetra that has a really bright red nose, but is also known as like the canary in the mine, because if that red goes faded or pale, you know that something's wrong or stressing out the fish. They've got a cool tail with some pattern on it, but they're really known for being tight schoolers. So let's call them Olympic synchronized swimming winners. That's what they remind me of. I actually had a roommate who was a synchronized swimmer. It's pretty cool. Aiden suggested guppies. Oh, I have another friend who bought a free aquarium that happened to come with 70 guppy babies in this nasty green water muck. It was so disgusting, and those guppies were happy as ever, just eating whatever small microorganisms were in there. So for guppies, the thought here would be, take some home, please. Most people are constantly trying to get rid of them. Gabe's Aquatics, of course, follows up with Endler's livebearers. And I mean, the reason why I kept Endlers before guppies was because I liked their smaller size, but they're just as colorful, and they seemed a little more intelligent or curious. So, but I think most people would think of them as guppy with small tail. That's what probably most people think of them as, especially since there's so many hybrids. I hardly need to even think twice about Nicholas's Cory catfish because they are one of my favorite fish ever. I'm gonna call them best bottom dweller ever. Now, obviously they can't be kept with all fish, like with maybe goldfish. They'd probably try to eat them and maybe the spines would get caught. But for most community tanks with smaller fish, definitely one of the best, derpiest, funnest, coolest fish ever. Easy to breed. I remember my uncle had a giant aquarium that covered the whole wall on the side of the dining room. I think eventually he kept an arowana in there, but at the time it was a community tank, and I remember seeing these like ghostly pale white pink fish on the bottom that almost looked like little fish skeletons that were moving, and those were the albino Cory catfish, which ended up being one of the first fish that I ever kept. Allie says plecos. Let's narrow that down to common plecos because there's a lot of them. Whenever I think common pleco, I just think of my husband's friend who had one in a 55-gallon. He was probably told that, oh, this thing will clean up your algae, and now you've got this monster taking up almost half the tank and these huge long strings of fish poop everywhere caused by that pleco. So factory for fish poo. That's what I think of when I think of common plecos. Karina followed up with neon tetra. We already talked about the cardinal tetra. Neon tetras are usually a lot more common, a lot cheaper, sometimes down to 99 cents each if you get them on sale nowadays. I mean, I kept them definitely in my first community tank, and they definitely would look great in a huge school with a lot of plants, but they don't seem to have a lot of personalities. So let's call them classic beginner schooling fish. It's probably the first one that most people get. Son of a Quack has several suggestions, but I'm gonna pick out Rainbowfish because I love Rainbowfish. I wish that I had a large enough aquarium that could keep Rainbowfish in them. They're just so fast and colorful, and again, they have those big scales, but they have the narrower mouth, and I've heard it's really fun to try to raise their fry because the eggs are so small. How about almond-shaped, it counts because there's a hyphen in there, almond-shaped kaleidoscope of colors. That's what I think of Rainbowfish. Beautiful. I have kept dwarf Rainbowfish before, but I feel like they're just not as impactful as the bigger ones. White Cloud Mountain Minnows, I don't really need to make a forward review for because it's already known by the term poor man's neon tetra, which is sad because they are actually really cool. They both have that horizontal stripe of color, but the white clouds come in many varieties now, like 24 karat and longfin. I actually want to keep the longfin version someday. Really cool fish, very hardy, can be in an unheated aquarium, and you can definitely breed them outside in a mini pond. Sophie has Kuhli loaches. I love Kuhli loaches. They're just so unusual looking. They look like miniature eels or water snakes. And yes, a lot of people say they are shy and nocturnal, but when I had them in the Shy Guys tank where they were among other shy, less aggressive fish as well, I would commonly see them scavenging even during the daytime. Sometimes they would even eat from the top if there are floating flakes there. They were so cool. Let's call them Danger Noodle Never Dies. These things, and you may have heard in one of my past stories before, but Master Breeder Dean had an aquarium that he had pretty much drained and was going to get rid of down to like, a little bit of water, and left it there for a year and a half. And then a year and a half later, he saw Oh, there was actually one fish still alive in there, and it was a Kuhli loach. No food, no heater, no filter for an entire year and a half. These things are the bomb. Celestial pearl danias. Oh, how do I feel about them? They are a favorite of many people, including my coworker Jimmy, because they've got those beautiful gold dots on them, the bright red orange fins. They'll often dance and spar with each other, and they look great in a planted tank because of that. But I don't know, in my case, I could not tolerate them constantly fin nipping each other. I did not like seeing chunks taken out of their tail or fins and not knowing if they were gonna get sick. I mean, they never did, but I was always so worried about them. So even though they're tiny and beautiful, they are still danios. I would say default choice for aquascapers. I feel like I see them in a lot of planted tanks, and everybody has to keep them at one point or another because of that. Mr. Fish Sir wants to know about Harlequin rasboras. Okay, I have a story about this. Well, it's not really a story, but more like I was amazed at when you see them at the store and they're in their smaller juvenile size. That's the only time I had what I thought they looked like, versus when you see them full grown in a hobbyist aquarium. I was astonished at how large they were. Like, yes, they were only 2.5 inches, but their bodies are kind of thicker in the middle, thicker than like a Cardinal tetra. So they just looked a lot bigger with that orange body and of course, very distinctive black triangular patch near the tail. Let's say that they celebrates Halloween all year. They kind of look like jack-o'-lantern fish a little bit with the colors. Another rasbora, Dawn suggests chili rasboras. They are another very tiny nanofish, commonly found in planted tanks just like the ember tetra as well, because of that beautiful red that just really stands out against the green. So let's call them tiny specks of red, or maybe tiny specks of spiciness, because they kind of look like red crushed pepper, you know, in a dish. Steven wants to hear about swordtails. I haven't kept swordtails because they are a larger live bearer, and so they would probably need, a group of them would need a bigger tank than a 20-gallon that I have, but they are really impressive. Like, I would love to keep them as well. I saw Greg Sage's collection of wild type swordtails, and they are so, so impressive. I want to keep this family friendly, but the first phrase that came to mind was, females prefer bigger swords. Vicky with the Kribensis. Oh, they're such a, I feel like a lot of beginners, when they want to start breeding, they'll start with a live bearer because it's a lot easier. The fry come out much bigger and they're easier to feed all sorts of foods. Versus once you get kind of past the live bearer level, then you start looking at fish that are a little bit harder. Like Kribensis, they're known for their parenting care. Well, they'll protect the fry and they've got that beautiful red-purple belly. So let's say that this is a intermediate level breeding project. I'm not saying it's hard, it's just not, most beginners don't start with Kribensis necessarily. I'm Cool wants to know about Bristlenose plecos. What to say, they're a small pleco. They're known for their bristlenose or bushy nose. The females don't have as much, and they're very easy to breed. There's several varieties like albino, longfin, calico, super reds, all that. Definitely something I want to give a try someday. Bushy beard, must breed. That's my final answer. Okay, my brain is fried, but if you can come up with a better, wittier forward review for any beginner fish, leave them down in the comments. I would love to read them. Take time to enjoy your aquariums, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!